Hi, this is Usha. Welcome to Rathod's IELTS classes. Today in this lecture, we are going to discuss current affairs of 20th April 2021. In this lecture, we are going to discuss 9 topics which are very much relevant to UPSC. So let's get started with our discussion and let us see first article. So title says vaccines for all above 18 from May 1st. Okay, states can buy directly. So this article mainly talking about this COVID-19 vaccine, and now we enter into this phase 3 of this COVID-19 vaccination. So if you're talking about introduction regarding these phases, so in phase 1, so vaccination is given to healthcare workers and as well as frontline workers. So in phase 2 of this COVID-19 vaccination, we went for vaccination more than 45 years of people. Okay. And next one is now we enter this phase 3 of vaccination, and we are going to give this vaccination for people who have achieved more than 18 years from May 1st onwards. So this article will be important regarding health, and now let us talk about in detail regarding this article. And this topic will be important regarding mains point of view, not from prelims. Okay. So this article mainly talking about this COVID-19 vaccines. So if you're talking about context, it mainly says that because of this second wave of COVID-19 in India, so today's newspaper mainly recorded that more than 2.5 lakh cases, there are new infections reported in last 24 hours. So because of this second wave in India, there is number of new infections that are increasing rapidly across country. So because of this, now center mainly took decision mainly to vaccinate against the infection for all persons who are above age of 18 years, that will be started from May 1st onwards. So from May 1st onwards, now this vaccination will be given to people who attain age of 18 years. Okay, so this is third phase of vaccination of this COVID-19. And if you see some important details of this article, it mainly says that this decision mainly taken by our Prime Minister after meeting mainly with pharmaceutical company representatives and as well as with doctors, and also some union minister in charge of healthcare and as well as medicines, and as well as some officials from different ministerial nodal agencies. Okay, different multiple nodal ministers, they mainly come up with meeting, and finally our Prime Minister took this decision like, so from May 1st onwards, vaccination will be given to persons who attained age of 18 years. Okay, so this is some important details. So what is concern? So first one is, whenever we want to increase our vaccination, so we need to see whether we have enough stock of vaccines or not. Okay, so first important concern is availability of vaccines. And next one is, this is phase 3 of national vaccine strategy, and this phase 3 mainly enable vaccine manufacturing that will also help for sale of half of their vaccines to state government and as well as open market. Now state governments, they can get this vaccines directly from this vaccine manufacturers. Okay, and they can get about half of their vaccines are produced by these manufacturers, and rest will be sold to center here. So in this way here, states, private hospitals and as well as some industrial establishment, they can procure vaccines from this vaccine manufacturing. So one important concern is, whenever we are going for directly getting vaccines from this manufacturers, for example by this private hospitals, so there may be rise of cost of this vaccine. So this is one important cause of concern again. Okay, and this is just of this topic. I hope it is clear. And now let us see next article. Title says second wave is not more lethal. So this is statement which is given by ICMR. So this article will be important regarding health again. So this will be important regarding GS paper 2. And now let us talk about this article in a great detail. First, let us see context. Here context mainly says that there is no difference in mortality among COVID-19 patients in first and as well as second wave. Okay, so mainly this is mainly said by leading doctors in charge of national COVID-19 management strategy. So under this national COVID-19 management strategy here, so whoever leading doctors are there, they said that there is no difference in mortality among this COVID-19 patients that are seen in first and as well as second waves of this coronavirus. And if you see some details which are given in this article, it mainly says that there is increase in instances of some symptoms like there is shortness of breath. Okay, so whenever we are facing any respiratory infection, or whenever even if you are feeling with a cough and as well as sometimes cold, then you can also feeling this shortness of breath here. Okay, so it is one of important cause and important symptom that is seen in this patients who are infected with this COVID-19 and patients who are above 60 years of age. So it is one of most risk for dying of this people. Okay, and the second wave also very important because even children or even people who are less than 20 years of age, they are also seeing some marginally higher infections than we are comparing with this first wave of this coronavirus. So this is also one important cause of concern. And now let us try to talk about some facts regarding this ICMR. So first of all, what is this ICMR? ICMR mainly stands for Indian Council of Medical Research, and it is an apex body in India for formulation, for coordination, and as well as promotion of biomedical research. Okay, so you need to remember this is apex body that mainly deals with formulation, coordination, and as well as promotion of biomedical research in India. And this ICMR mainly funded by Government of India, that mainly comes under Department of Health Research and as well as Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. And if you are talking about important mandate of ICMR, that is to conduct, to coordinate and to implement medical research for benefit of society at large, and as well as it will also deals with translating some medical innovations like medical products, medical processes, and also introducing them into public health system. So these are some important facts regarding this ICMR, and this is gist of this article. I hope it is clear. And now let us see next article. Title says NASA Mars helicopter makes first flight on another planet, that is on Mars. Okay, so this article mainly talk about NASA Mars helicopter. So name of that helicopter is Ingenuity. Okay, so this is mainly related to Mars mission, that is Perseverance mission of NASA. So this article will be important regarding science and technology, which comes under GS paper 3. And this topic will be important regarding both mains and as well as prelims. So now let us try to talk about this article in a great detail. So now first let us see context why it is in news. So NASA successfully flew its tiny helicopter. The name here is Ingenuity on Mars surface. Okay, so it is first powered flight on another planet, that is on Mars. So this is one big achievement for NASA. And if you see some details regarding this topic, it mainly says that data and images from autonomous flight, they were transmitted 278 million kilometers back to Earth. So after flight of this Ingenuity helicopter, so it also took some images and as well as data. So this data and as well as images from this autonomous flight, they are sent back to Earth here. Okay, and this Ingenuity helicopter, which quickly sent back a black and white image. So this image mainly shows a bug-like shadow cast of the surface. So if you see here, this is a image. Okay, so this is one black and white image of that helicopter, and if you see this, it is looking like a bug. Okay, bug on surface. And next important details here is, if you're talking about some facts regarding this Ingenuity, so it mainly traveled to Mars and attached to underside of Perseverance. So under this Perseverance mission, so this Ingenuity helicopter, which is mainly sent from the underside of this Perseverance, an important goal of this helicopter, that is to demonstrate its technological works, and it won't contribute to anything regarding this Perseverance science goals. Okay, so it is mainly to demonstrate its technical works. Okay, technological works. And if you're talking about this Perseverance, this mission mainly touched down this planet on February 18th. Okay, so this Perseverance mission, it is mainly to search. Mainly, it is important aim, it is to search for signs of extraterrestrial life which is present on Mars surface or not. And if you're talking about some facts regarding this mission, that is mission Perseverance, and it was launched on July 2020, and primary task of this Perseverance, it is to seek some signs of ancient life and as well as to collect some samples of rock and as well as regolith to possibly return to Earth. So why we need to see about signs of ancient life. So there is one assumption like aliens, they used to live on this Martian surface. So because of this, we send this mission mainly to seek some signs of ancient life and to collect some samples of rocks and regolith. Okay, so it will be helpful for study about this formation of Mars, and as well as we can study about important composition of this Mars also. Okay, and this mission mainly fueled by electrical power, which mainly by using some heat, plutonium radioactive decay. So whenever there is any plutonium radioactive decay is happening, that will release some heat. Okay, so that heat will be converted into energy, electrical energy, and this electrical energy will be fuel this Perseverance mission. And if you're talking about landing site of this Perseverance, this will be important for prelims. So landing site is Jezero crater. Okay, so these are some important things that you should remember regarding this topic. And now let us see next article. Title says France enabled 1994 Rwanda genocide report. So this article mainly talking about Rwanda genocide. So this topic will be very much important regarding GS paper. Okay, GS paper 1 under we can say world history. Okay, and as well as this will be important regarding international relations, which comes under GS paper 1. So now let us try to understand this article in a great detail. So you need to know about this, what is this Rwanda genocide, because as an UPSC aspirant you need to know about this Rwanda genocide for sure. Okay, so now let us try to understand this article in a great detail. First we are going to see context, why it is in news, and we are going to see some details which are highlighted in this article, and later on we are going to see some facts, and we are going to understand what is this Rwanda genocide in a great detail. So now first let us see context, why it is in news. So if you see context, it mainly says that French government bears significant responsibility for enabling a foreseeable genocide. It is according to the report which is commissioned by Rwanda government. So Rwanda government came up with one report. So this report mainly says that French government played an important role in enabling some foresee genocide in Rwanda, that is called as Rwandan genocide. So in this Rwandan genocide that happened in year 1994. So in this Rwandan genocide, French government played an important role. So this is according to report which is came up by Rwandan government. Okay, so in this context, Rwandan government also concludes about France's role before and as well as during the horror in which an estimated 8 lakh people they slaughtered in 1994. So during this Rwandan genocide, there are about 8 lakh people they were slaughtered in 1994. So why now Rwandan government came up with this report on France regarding this Rwandan genocide? Because France president now he want to improve relations with Rwanda. Okay, so because of this, Rwanda documented the role of French authorities before, during and also after this genocide. Okay, so now let us talk about details of this article. So France did nothing. This report mainly says that France did nothing to stop this massacre, mainly in April and May 1994. So after some years of this genocide, it mainly tried to cover up its role and as well as even offered some protection to some perpetrators of this genocide. Okay, so these are some important allegations which were made in that report. So now let us talk about Rwanda, where it is located. Let us see map. So this map will be very important because you can expect at least 2 to 3 questions regarding map in your UPSC prelims. Okay, so now let us see map of this Rwanda. So here we can see Rwanda is present. And if you are talking about Rwanda, we have many water bodies nearby. So here one water body is present. Here we have Lake Victoria. It is one of largest lake that is present. Okay, and here we have another water body that is present here. So you need to see rivers. Here there are also some rivers which are flowing, right? So you need to see which are rivers which are flowing, and as well as water bodies which are present near that. And one more thing you need to remember here is, so whenever any country which is in news, you need to see boundary countries. So here we have Democratic Republic of Congo, here we have Burundi, here we have Tanzania, and here we have Uganda. So these are countries which are mainly sharing boundaries with Rwanda. So you have to remember these countries for sure. Okay, and now let us talk about what is this Rwandan genocide. First, let us see location of this Rwanda. Rwanda, it is a landlocked country, right? So capital is Kigali, and population composition of this Rwanda include 2 groups. First one is Hutus, next one is Tutsi. Hutus, they are majority in Rwanda, and Tutsi, they are minority in Rwanda. So you have to remember this composition and as well as some important things regarding geography of this Rwanda. So if you are talking about some facts regarding this, what is this Rwanda genocide? So understand this, we need to see series of events that happened since World War II. So after ending of World War II here, originally this Rwanda mainly comes under German colony. So as you all know, in this World War II, so Germany was defeated. So after defeating of this Germany, so now this colony, okay, this German colony Rwanda transferred to Belgium, okay. So here this Belgium mainly favored Tutsi over Hutus. So here Belgium started providing or favored mainly Tutsi. They are minority people in Rwanda rather than Hutus. So because of this Hutus, they mainly came up with a revolution that is famously called as Hutus revolution. Okay, so by this Hutus revolution, a lot of Tutsis, they are forced to flee to other countries. Okay, so because of this, after that, what happened? Rwanda gained independence in year 1962. So after Rwanda got independence, so in this after Rwanda got independence, so government mainly formed by this Hutu dominant government that set up in Rwanda here. So what happened after this Hutus? They set up government and they established government in Rwanda. So Tutsi rebels, they invaded this Rwanda from Uganda. Okay, finally they came with ceasefire agreement between Rwandan government and as well as Rwandan Patriotic Front, that is Rwandan force. Okay, so RPF and as well as with this Rwandan government, here Tutsi rebels, they came up with agreement. Okay, finally transition government mainly formed in Rwanda. So that led to increase in tension between Hutus and Tutsis, okay, in Rwanda. So if you're talking about this government which is mainly formed by Hutus, right? So Hutus president of Rwanda was shot dead. So that led to outbreak of civil war in Rwanda, that is from April 6 to July 18, 1994. Okay, so in this civil war here Hutus mainly tried to eliminate entire Tutsi population, and that led to killings of about 8 lakh people. 8 lakh people, they were killed under this civil war. Okay, Tutsi also retaliated, and finally war ended when this Tutsi rebels, they defeated this Hutu militia. Okay, and finally this Tutsi took control over this Rwanda, and here Tutsis, they forced this Hutus to flee on Congo as refugee. Okay, so this is about this Rwanda's genocide. And what is connection of French here? So this part is very important to understand present context. So if you're talking about French connection here, France mainly maintained some close diplomatic ties with Hutu dominated government, that is majoritarian government. So what happened during this 1994 civil war? France even sent some forces only after it felt that Tutsi rebels, they will defeat this Hutu militia. And also there is one allegation like France saved many Hutus plotters of genocide, and as well as France also provides some shelter or asylum in France for these perpetrators. So this is about this article. And now let us say next article. Title says RBI sets up committee to review working of ARCs. So ARCs mainly stands for Asset Reconstruction Companies. So this topic will be important regarding economy, which comes under GS paper 3, and this topic will be important regarding means point of view. So here title says that RBI set up a committee. So this is 6-member committee mainly to review working of asset reconstruction companies. So I want to give you one small homework for you students. So please refer about what are these ARCs, because I didn't included basic facts regarding these ARCs in this lecture, because I already discussed number of times regarding these ARCs in our earlier lectures. So now let us see this article in a great detail. So this article mainly talking about committee to review working of this asset reconstruction companies. So if you're talking about context, it mainly says that RBI set up a committee to undertake a comprehensive review of the working of asset reconstruction companies, that is ARCs. So recently RBI came up with setting up of a committee that will undertake some comprehensive review of working of this asset reconstruction companies, and finally they will recommend some suitable measures for enabling them to meet the growing requirements of these ARCs. And if you're talking about details of this committee, so it is a 6-member committee and it is mainly headed by Sudarshan Sen. So this Sudarshan Sen was former executive director of RBI. And finally, this committee will review existing legal and as well as regulatory framework of this ARC, and they will recommend some measures for improving the efficiency of this ARCs in India. Okay, so this is about gist of this topic. And now let us see next article. Title says a huge costly mistake. So this article mainly talking about Ken-Betwa link project. Okay, so this article mainly talking about linking of rivers or interlinking of rivers. So this topic will be important regarding environment and ecology, which comes under GS paper 3. And now let us talk about this article in a great detail. So this topic will be very important regarding means and also even prelims point of view. So now let us try to talk about this article in a great detail. So this article mainly talking about Ken-Betwa project. So first let us see where is this Ken and where is this river Betwa is present. So here we can see Ken is present and here we can see river Betwa is present, right? So between this Ken and Betwa there is a link, okay? So this project is called as Ken-Betwa link project, okay? So it is mainly helpful for Uttar Pradesh and as well as Madhya Pradesh. And now let us talk about context, why it is in news. So this river project remained a pipe dream for more than 3 decades, that is from more than 30 years. It is one of important project. And if you are seeing last month, there are some developments that happened regarding this project. So in last month, UP and as well as MP and Center, they signed a three-party agreement mainly to transfer some surplus water mainly from Ken Basin in Madhya Pradesh, okay, mainly in some deficit area basin, that is Betwa in UP, okay. So we want to send this Ken water in MP towards this Betwa basin, which is located in UP here. Okay, so this is about Ken-Betwa link project. And now let us talk about details here. So this Ken-Betwa project is mainly part of National River Linking Project. So under this National River Linking Projects, we have 14 Himalayan and as well as 16 Peninsular River projects. They need to be connected. So whenever they are connected with 30 canals and as well as 3,000 reservoirs, that will help to mainly improve our irrigation facilities, and as well as it will be also helpful to provide drinking water facilities, so and so for these areas. So now let us talk about some important advantages of this project. So first one is it will enhance irrigation potential, okay. Mainly there is water starvation or water decrease that is seen in this Bundelkhand region in UP and MP, and this Bundelkhand region will be very much beneficial whenever we are going for this type of projects here, okay. And it will also facilitate underground water research, and as well as it will be also reducing occurrence of flood in these areas, and it will be also helpful for irrigation. So if you are talking about MP, so 4 districts they will comes under increased irrigation, okay. So that will leads to increase in our agriculture produce also. And if you are talking about UP, in 4 districts about 2,51,000 hectares that will be brought under irrigation whenever we are going for this Ken-Betwa link project. And will also provide some drinking water supply mainly for 41 lakh people in MP and as well as 21 lakh people in UP. So now let's talk about some concerns regarding this link project. So first and foremost concern here is there is loss of ecosystem. So whenever we are going for construction of any link, so we need to go for clearing of land, okay. So in this clearing of land, it may also include some forest area, right. So if whenever we are going for destroying of this forest area for building of this link project, then that will lead to some loss of ecosystem or ecosystem diversity in that area, and will also lead to some displacement of thousands of people. So this is also one cause of concern. And next one is it mainly destroys about 7.2 lakh trees. So whenever these trees are removed or these trees are cut down, that will affect rainfall effectively, right. So it is also one important cause of concern. Already we know this Bundelkhand region, which is mainly decrease in rainfall that is seen, and we can see this is the most drought prone area here. So even when you are cutting down of these trees here, then that will further leads to destroying of rainfall in this area. And 12,500 hectares of land that will get submerged under this project. So out of this 9,000 hectares of land, they belongs to forest land, okay. So in this forest land mainly includes some important sections of even Panna Tiger Reserve, So this Panna tiger reserve, it is very important because we have successfully improved tiger population and as well as vulture population in this area. Okay, so this is about some important things that you should remember. And if you see some issues here, so we need to get clearance from central government, okay, a central empowered committee of this Supreme Court. So in this context, this committee will mainly go towards this cost and benefit calculations, and this Supreme Court mainly said that here benefits do not seem certain and they are far out of weighed by cost on the environment. That means the benefits are very much less whenever we are comparing with that of this concern, so we cannot go for this project. So this is decision which is given by Supreme Court. And what will be alternatives here? So alternatives mainly include we can go for water conservation rather than interlinking of river projects, and as well as water harvesting methods that can be followed here. Okay, so in this way finally author mainly says that there are number of doubts which are about this benefits of this project regarding ecosystem damage and as well as some carefully preserved wildlife, and also regarding project, it is like whenever we are going for this project, it will be like a huge and costly mistake. Okay, so this is gist of this topic. I hope it is clear. And now let us see next article. Title says sharing the burden of care. So this article mainly talking about community health care centers. So as you all know, because of increase in number of cases, so there are freshly 2.5 lakh cases that are registered within last 24 hours. So because of this, there are many vulnerable people, they are also getting this coronavirus. So for these vulnerable people, they need some treatment, right? So they need oxygen supply and they need some essential care or special care that to be given. So as we know, because of increase in number of cases, what happen, beds in hospitals, they are maximum filled up. So there is also one problem like lack of oxygen and as well as lack of hospital beds that is seen here, and as well as there is lack of infrastructure. So because of this, whenever we are moving towards some tertiary care hospitals, so they are very much costly here. So because of this, it cannot be affordable for poor people. So in this context, we need to go for developing of this community healthcare centers. Okay, so this is just here. And now let us try to see each and every point in a great detail in this article. So this article mainly talking about is community health centers. So if you're talking about context, it mainly says that there is increase in number of this coronavirus cases that is evident. Okay, so because of the second wave of coronavirus, so our government which is mainly failed to control infections. So because of failure of government regarding how to control this coronavirus, so we are evident that now we are mainly facing the second wave of coronavirus now. Okay, so if you're talking about this coronavirus infections, so it is mainly responsibility of state to first prevent the spread of this pandemic here. So mainly we need to prevent the spread of pandemic, and it is important responsibility of a state. Okay, and here the states, they need to be take some extra vigilant in order to mainly prevent every death from disease. So because of this coronavirus, it is also leading to increase in number of deaths. So mainly to control this deaths, state need to take some extra vigilant steps. Okay, so nation will face several challenges regarding this healthcare sector, like poor infrastructure and as well as inadequate staff that is present across our healthcare system. So in this context, government will have two choices. First one is it can go towards reactive approach. So in this reactive approach, we can transform a few of well-performing facilities at this tertiary care level hospitals, such that we can convert these tertiary hospitals into state-of-art COVID-19 hospitals. So because of this, what will be impact? The impact will be there will be increase in cost. Okay, so poor people, they cannot affordable, and people cannot get their routine hospital services regarding some emergencies like heart diseases or any surgery. So in this way, it will be very difficult to conduct some regular hospital services by those hospitals. And next one is we can go for equipment functional facilities of the government health services at secondary level, and in that case we can convert them into exclusive COVID-19 care centers. Okay, and we can treat people who do not need much infrastructure or much ICU support. So whenever people who are facing some mild to moderate symptoms, they can be treated by using this secondary level hospitals here. So in this way, we can also talk about one important alternative. So if you're talking about health services in India, we have three-tier structure. So in this three-tier structure, it mainly envisages community health center. So in this community health center here, we are mainly facing some important crisis, okay, regarding this coronavirus. So because of this, we can have some potential to develop this fulcrum on which the entire health system that can bank on. So we need to go for using of these community health centers. So what are these community health centers first? So if you are talking about some capacity of these community health centers, they are expected to function as a first referral unit mainly for curative case of services, and they are supposed to have 30 beds with at least 4 specialty services in each this CHC, and as well as it can cover a population of 30,000 to 1 lakh in rural areas, and over 5,000 CHCs they can be existed in rural areas. And whenever we are increasing just 10 to 15 beds in each hospital which is running under this CHC, such that finally we can add about 50,000 to 75,000 beds easily here. So in this way, this facility will be very much helpful to strengthen, and will be very much helpful to address this COVID-19 specific treatment needs of rural population. And next thing is here 4 to 6 ECs under this each district, that is a one important sustainable solution, such that we can easily convert those independent stand-alone centers of this COVID-19 treatment. And next one is finally, it will be helpful to reduce overload which is faced by these tertiary hospitals regarding increased number of these COVID-19 cases. And this build mainly trust among people to contribute to strengthening health services in a long term. Okay, so this is gist of this topic. I hope it is clear now. Now let us see next article. So before seeing next article, I want to make a small announcement on this platform. So if you want to clear UPSC in 2022, we came up with one important and beneficial and also highly economical course, that is current affairs package along with mains answer writing practice. Okay, so regarding this current affairs package, so how it is useful to clear this UPSC 2022. So one thing you need to keep in your mind is, before entering into examination hall, you need to know at least 1.5 years current affairs for sure. And this is right time to join this course to cover this current affairs comprehensively. Okay. And next one is, why need to focus on this current affairs? Because 50 to 60% of questions, either it may be prelims or mains and interview, so you can expect questions from this current affairs. And next one is, most of the freshers, especially beginners, they ignore this mains answer writing practice. So even though if they have knowledge, if they have cleared prelims, they cannot clear mains without proper answer writing skills. You need to focus on how to improve your answer writing skills, okay, from beginning onwards. So in this way, in this course, we are exactly focusing on how to improve your answer writing skills. Okay. And next one is, if you join this course, we also conduct prelims test on every Sunday. So in this way, this course is exactly focusing on demand of UPSC. So finally, I want to say one thing, please don't take this course as a choice. Try to join this course as soon as possible and achieve a dream of clearing UPSC. And next important thing here is, for further details, please contact us. Details are given in description box, and if you want to talk to me directly, you can talk to me on this number 8074765513. So you can call and you can know details of this course, and if you have any queries, so please call me. So now let us see next article. Title says India and Russia look for a reset. So this article mainly talking about India-Russia relations. So we need to know why this India-Russia relations is in news, that is context, and we need to know why Russia is important to India and important to Russia also, and as well as we need to know about challenges between this India-Russia relations. So this article will be important regarding GS paper 2 under international relations, and this topic is very much important regarding mains. So now let us have a detailed discussion on this topic. So this article mainly talking about India-Russia relations. So what is context? Here Russian Foreign Secretary visit to India. So in this visit he mainly said that, so this will be some good occasion to examine relevance of Indo-Russian ties in recent times. So why we need to talk about Russia, why Russia is important to India? First one is, whenever we want to balance our neighbor, that is China, we need help of Russia here. So whenever we are having good support from Russia, we can diffuse the tensions between India and Russia. So even recently we went for trilateral meet, that is RIC, Russia, India and China. So in this RIC meet, they talked about standoff that happened at LAC region, and after this clashes which happened in that Galwan Valley area, we came up with this trilateral meet. And next one is regarding emerging new sectors of economic engagement between India and Russia. So we have good cooperation in areas like weapons, hydrocarbons, nuclear energy, diamonds, and new sectors of economic engagement regarding mining and agro-industrial sector, high technology, robotics, and as well as nanotechnology. So in these areas we need good and better management. And this one is we need to combat terrorism. So terrorism mainly combated, mainly we can go for close gap of whatever close gap it is present in Afghanistan. We are going to fill up this gap, and we are also going for finalization of comprehensive convention on international terrorism. So that is mainly dealing with Afghanistan. Okay, and if you're talking about one another thing important here is mainly to support India in multinational forums. For example, we can talk about United Nations Security Council and as well as nuclear supplier group. And why India is important for Russia? So for two reasons India is important for Russia. First one is to balance China. So even though Russia and China, they are having good relationship, so here China mainly says that Russia is a junior partner. So because of this, Russia mainly retaliates, or it does not accept this statement which is given by China here. Okay, and next one is mainly to revive Eurasian Economic Union. So India needs Russia needs India. So if you are talking about this reviving Eurasian Economic Union, so Russia mainly seeks to leverage India's soft power, mainly to gain some legitimacy in success of Eurasian Economic Union. So Russia want to use India's soft power mainly to gain power in this Eurasian Economic Union. So because of these two reasons, India is very much important for Russia. And now let us talk about challenges between relationship of India and Russia. So first and foremost one is India, which is going towards west. So because of increased Chinese expansionist policy here, India it is mainly forced to move towards west. Okay, so it is actively participating with US. So even recently we studied about this Quad also, right? And next one is Russia mainly going towards east here. So because Western countries have imposed harsh economic sanctions on Russia, and because of this Russia it is moving towards east. Okay, mainly after annexation of Crimea in 2014 by Russia. And next one is Russia is also revamping up its own pivot to east. Okay, and as well as it is also improving some tensions with China, and as well as it is going to have some better ties with Turkey, Iran, and Pakistan. And now let us talk about map here. So here we have Russia, here we have China, and here we have Mongolia, here we have India, right? So here what happened, India it is moving towards west, okay, but Russia it is moving towards east. Okay, so because of this, now we are seeing there are two power blocks that formed, that is USA on one side and China on another side. Okay, so this is about map of this Russia. And now let us see next article, and this topic will be very important regarding GS paper 2 under polity, and this is one of most interesting article, and I will try my level best to make you understand about this ordinance. So ordinance power which is mainly given to president and as well as governor of state. So if you are talking about constitutional provisions, Article 123 talks about ordinance making power of president, and Article 213 talk about ordinance power of this governor. So what happened, this ordinance mainly come up by president and governor of state whenever parliament is not in session in regarding president, and whenever state legislature it is not in session, your governor can promote or can come up with this ordinance under this Article 123 and as well as Article 123 and Article 213 of our Indian Constitution. So this is regarding ordinance making power of president and governor respectively. Okay, so what happened now? So ordinance will be promulgated, right? So after whenever house it is came into session here, so they need to introduce this ordinance, and that ordinance to be passed in house within 6 weeks. So if that ordinance will not be passed in 6 weeks, then that ordinance will be died. So maximum strength or maximum tenure of this ordinance will be 6 months, 6 weeks of time here. So after this 6 weeks, if at all this ordinance which is not passed, then that will dies. So later on, whenever again house which is going into recession, then our government, either it is central government or state government, either again they are going for re-promulgation of the same ordinance. So this is about issue now. So now let us try to understand this topic in a very great detail. So if you see articles, that is Article 123 and Article 213. Article 123 talks about ordinance making power of president. Article 213 talking about ordinance making power of governor of state here. So recently here state government and as well as central governments, they are passing ordinance. So if you are talking about some constitutional provisions, our constitution provides mainly for central government and as well as state government to make laws when parliament it is not in session. So whenever any bill that need to become an act, that means it need to be passed in both the houses, that is in Lok Sabha and as well as Rajya Sabha. That means whenever house is not in session or only one house is in session, so in that case this ordinance can be passed by president, okay, because whenever any bill that need to become an act, it should be passed in both the houses, that is Lok Sabha and as well as Rajya Sabha. Finally president he needs to give assent, and after giving assent then only this bill becomes an act, okay. So because of this here whenever these houses are not in session, only one house is in session, so in this time then president have power according to article 123 to issue ordinance, okay. So if you are talking about our constitution, it mainly permits both central government and as well as state government to make laws whenever parliament is in session, whenever parliament it is not in session, okay. So whenever parliament it is not in session, whenever there is a need to come up with any law regarding very urgent topic, so regarding that urgent requirements, now president and as well as governor they can come up with ordinance making power, okay. So our constitution states ordinance will lapse at end of 6 weeks from the time of parliament or state legislature next meets, okay. So after again our parliament got meet and as well as even state legislatures that got met, so within this 6 weeks it need to be passed. So if it is not passed within 6 weeks here, then that ordinance will dies, okay. So even in our constituent assembly discussions here, so in that time here they may talked about how long this ordinance could remain valid, but some people they said it is about 4 weeks, okay. This 4 weeks of time it is very much sufficient to call an urgent session of parliament here, but none of them they raised about possibility of an ordinance to be re-promulgated because it is perhaps beyond their imagination, but this ordinance it is mostly misused by both central and as well as state governments, okay. So if you are talking about data regarding ordinance was originally conceived as one emergency provision which is given to president and as well as governor of state here, okay. It was used fairly regularly. If you are talking about data regarding how many times this ordinance re-promulgated, in 1950 central ordinance were issued at average of 7.1 per year, and in 1990s it is very much increased to 17.6 per year, and in 2010s it is decreased by 7.9 per year. And next one is in 2019 there were 16 times ordinance were used, and in 2015 there are 15 times, and in 2021 till April, okay, till April 2020 it is 20th April 2021, till now 4 times government used this ordinance making power. So if you are talking about now state government is also equally, and we can say it is more used than compared to that of center. So if you are talking about state government, they also used this provision very oftenly, and issue mainly brought up in Supreme Court through a writ petition. So if you are talking about writs, it comes under Article 32 of Indian Constitution. So under Article 32 here, it mainly provides for 5 writs, okay. So under writ petition, which is mainly filed by DC Wadhwa in Supreme Court, so he mainly found out that in Bihar state government issued 256 ordinances, that is between 1967 till 1981, and out of these 256 ordinances, about 69 ordinances they are re-promulgated several times, and out of the 69, 11 ordinances they are alive for more than 10 years. So because of this, Supreme Court took this case and it came up with 5-judge bench, okay, and mainly said that re-promulgation of ordinances it is contrary to our constitutional scheme. So why it is against our constitutional scheme? So if you are talking about different organs of state, we have executive, we have legislature, and finally we have judiciary. So what is important work of legislative? That is to make laws, okay. To make laws it is a work of legislature, and to execute laws it is important function of this executive, and here judiciary it is need to interpret the laws. So here whenever government which is coming up with ordinances, that is government, that is executive, will take this decisions and it is coming up with making of laws. So if you're talking about our constitutional scheme here, legislature, they should make laws. But now by using this ordinance making power, state government and as well as central government, they are making laws instead of this legislature. Okay, so because of this, it is against constitutional scheme. So this is important judgment which is given by 5-judge constitutional bench of 1986. Okay, so in this way here executive mainly coming up with making of laws, and in this way it is ignoring the work or ignoring the functions of legislature. But this judgment did not stop at this practice of repromulgation of ordinances in India. Centre also started again using this repromulgation, and even Bihar also started this. So for example, in 2013 and 2014, regarding the Securities Laws Amendment Ordinance, it was promulgated 3 times. And next one is regarding Land Acquisition Act, which issued in December 2014, and this ordinance also promulgated twice. Okay, and finally again matter went to Supreme Court in 2017, and Supreme Court now came up with the largest bench, that is 7-judge bench, and this judgment mainly said that the practice of this repromulgation of ordinances, it will be unconstitutional, and repromulgation of ordinances, it is a fraud thing. Okay, fraud on constitution as well as subversion of democratic legislature process here. Okay, so even this 2017 judgment is also ignored. Okay, so again government came up with Medical Council Amendment Ordinance, and it issued in September 2018, and again that is repromulgated in Jan 2019. And if you see current case, why this ordinance and repromulgation is in use, because Commission for Air Quality Management is even more egregious now, because it laid in Parliament on first day of budget session regarding this air quality management. But what happened, bill mainly to replace this ordinance, it is not introduced in the House. So because of this, again now after recession, here government came with ordinance regarding this promulgation of this air quality management now. So if you're talking about state governments, for example Kerala, in 2020 it came up with 81 ordinances. In Karnataka it is 24, and in Maharashtra it is 21 ordinances that are mainly promulgated here. Okay, and if you're talking about government, so government will include both central government and as well as state governments. So in this way here, central government and as well as state governments, they are violating one important principle, that is separation of powers. That means we have executive, we have legislation, we have judiciary. So executive, they need to do this work, and legislative, they need to do their work, and judiciary, they need to do their work. So one organ should not interfere in another organ. But here executive, which is interfere in legislative work, that is to make laws by using this ordinance making power. Okay, so because of this, it is again separation of power concept here, and one institution should check another institution. That is, we have checks and balances also. Whenever here legislative which is coming up with any laws, so if they are not according to provisions of our constitution, then our Supreme Court, or whenever we are talking about judiciary, that will have power to make those law null and void here. So for executive also, there is need of check made by this legislature and as well as judiciary. Executive made accountable mainly to House, mainly during question hour, etc. here. So in this way, checks and balances which are present on one organ by another organ here. Okay, finally author mainly says that whenever we are going for not checking this practice of repromulgation, or whenever other two organs, they are not putting some limitations on another organ or coming up with checks and balances, so these two organs, that is even judiciary and as well as legislature, they are also abdicating their responsibility to our constitution. So this is just of this topic. And there is one article on page number 6, that is regarding artificial intelligence. So we are going to discuss about this artificial intelligence in our weekly current affairs. Don't worry about that topic. So simply you can go through this. So this article mainly talked about some positives of this artificial intelligence and as well as negatives of this artificial intelligence. So you can easily understand that article. Today already video, it is a very long, right? So because of this, I decided to take this artificial intelligence regarding article in our weekly current affairs session. Okay, don't worry about that. And now let us talk about today's main question. So the frequent promulgation of ordinances is an assault on the democratic structure of the constitution. Critically analyze. So in critically analyze, you need to write about both positive and as well as negatives. We try to write answer regarding this question. Okay. So try to read question at least twice before attempting your answer, okay? And you need to see what is keyword that is present, and you need to write answer according to that keyword. So by this we are concluding today. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like, share and comment my videos. And don't forget to enroll this current affairs package. Thank you so much.